Do a little test fit once more. See how it looks. On a project this old, I mean, nothing's going to be perfect. You just want it to look reasonably close, and to me, that looks reasonably close. This thing's probably been bopped around off-road so much, it's all twisted and bent anyway, right?
It's a little ruddy in the desert.
It's so much fun, though. I can't wait.
So much fun.
If you've never driven in like an open-wheeled car like this, it feels kind of like, well, again, if you've never driven a chopper motorcycle, you don't know the feeling, but there's something about being out in the breeze with a loud engine behind you.
Yep.
37 and a half, and that's darn near correct. All right, let's just center this. Get it a bit more vertical, and let's weld that. All right, some stuff about welding. People have asked me a lot about it. Obviously, it's a Lincoln MIG welder. No advertisements here. It's just what I happen to like. I use a .030 wire in this machine. It's a good all-around wire. This is about 1/8 inch wall material, so it'll work, gets penetration. On the smaller MIG for sheet metal, I'll use .023, which is thin, works great. And then for structural stuff, 1/4 inch, etc., is .035. So this is the middle of the road. If that doesn't mean anything to you, then so be it. It'll mean a lot to certain folks, especially if you're trying to weld sheet metal with .035 wire. This machine, you got wire speed, and then you got voltage, which is basically the heat, how much energy you're going to put into this weld. For this material, I go at about 17 to 18, and my wire speed, no matter what the heat, I always keep it at about 230. Once we get into some sheet metal stuff, you'll see me start to really play with these knobs to get the welds cooler so they don't just blast the sheet metal out from where you're trying to weld. This is heavy metal, so it's going to be easy breezy. Heavy metal. we need a band in the corner. We need a soundtrack.
We really do.
Everything is copyrighted. Can't get away with nothing nowadays. So, we got that, like that. I like that, like that. I'm just gonna hit it with a tack weld. Are we looking centered? Yeah, it looks centered. This might blow out the phone, Jamie, so let's not get the arc in it. Come on. The joys of rusty metal. There it is. Oops. Just gonna get a tack on one side. Hop over here. I can already see just how loose the fabrication was on that pipe frame, but I'm gonna work with that. Right, hop back over here. Grab a little bit more on this back side. This is one thing you find with a lot of older work. This tube, or the square tube here, is centered pretty well with the roll bar, but on this side, you'll see it's super crooked. So that's where you bring in the big hammer technique. You can reference this, Jamie.
Let me put on my ear protection.
Yeah, just so see, the other one is centered and this one's just off. You remedy that with this tool here. Look at that, better already. I can live with that one. All right, where's my helmet? Let's weld up some more stuff. A lot of times with older material, you'll run into rust, things of that nature. This gap is a little bit big in the cut, but I'm able to just kind of tickle it with the welder. Slow down, let it cool off, and continue. So you can hear that the gap here is very tight. I'm able to just blast right in there. Lay a hot bead on that without that pausing. Same thing here, we'll just be able to shoot it. Now there's a bit of a gap in this one, and I'll do that. Slow down and wait. You just hit it. If it gets too hot, the metal's just going to fall right out of the weld. So that's the dance. Right there, that's a good one. Hit the insides. I'm going to try to keep everything we do with this kind of one-take wonder video approach. Not waste a lot of time in the finishing, you know, the redundant welding, etc. It's more about the idea and the execution. The execution. So now I'll take these off. And you see that roll bar is right where I left it. It ain't going nowhere. Looks better already. But for the crown jewel, the double uppergus approach, we're gonna stick another roll bar right next to that one. Right after this brief refreshment. Ah, that's some good coffee. That welder a little noisy, I'll shut it off for this next description. All right, as I mentioned on the table, we're going to stick one more of these things in place. I think it'll look nice coming down to this part of the chassis. Sort of like that. Yeah, but with those spreaders between. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to center these up. See, I already put hash marks on everything, so it's easy to line them up. I think I'm just going to put those spreaders in here, put a clamp on it, and then I'll trim the bottoms, slide them in. You just tack 2 of those little guys on there. What's the timer say?
We're at 10 minutes now. But we were at like 25.
Oh, so we're at 35.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. So I'm going to take this and put it right on the mark. Everybody, watch your eyes. Yeah, like that. And this one, let me get on this side so I can put an eyeball on that. And I want that parallel like that. Right on the mark. Yeah. Just putting 1 tack on these because you might have to move it a little bit. We'll see. Just gonna take a look. Yeah. Here we go. Here we go. It's the one thing about welding that fascinated the absolute heck out of me. It's just like, it's just stuck. There's no drying time. This isn't glue. It's just like,
Crazy.
right now.
I had no idea.
Yes, indeed. I'll take that. All right. I think I'm going to just put the other spreader in here as a placeholder, and I'm going to lock those in. Put a good weld on that. I'm happy. Happier than yet. Actually, happier than this morning. We found out none of our video had sound. Oops. All right.
Funny.
Oh yeah, good times.
Really liked it.
Good
I
times.
thought it was quite endearing.
See that? Look at that. That looks like super cool.
Yeah, that looks really fun.
King of the dunes with this arrangement. Let me pop this one in, and I'll hit that. This is the loose side. Wait, I can't do that, but I can do that. We're good. Weld this up. Sometimes I'll run a solid bead just to get stuff stuck, but there's something in like pulsing the welder like this, where you can lay out a nice series of dots, like a perfect weld. You know, they call it a row of dimes or whatever. But this just looks a little more decorative. And if you're out of position or going around really tight tubes like this, it helps you just get a fairly even bead without all the control you need to just blast it as if you were arc welding. I mean stick welding. This is arc also, but when you're stick welding, you don't have the trigger, so you're kind of committed once you start going. So a lot of fabrication is just standing around doing this. It's not very exciting. It's not a very visual sport. But I'm taking the time here because I'm going to put stress in those lower legs like I did, and I'd hate for this to pop apart. That was my ground. I heard it. All right. So at this point, you might want to go check the fridge, maybe use the restroom. Got about 5 minutes to just hang out. Whatever you do, don't change the channel. It's gonna be awesome. Where's my foot? I can't see a thing. All right, one more half. We'll have the tops of this welded. I'm already thinking about getting out in the desert with this thing. I don't ride that hard. I'm never gonna flip this thing. It's all about the look. You know, if this was gonna be some kind of race car, I would have started in a completely different realm. But it's starting to look cool. All right, one Sawzall, one blade coming up. It's where you break for a commercial in the real world. Here you are.
Thank you.
I'm going to cut a piece of steel next, right at the bottom of the roll cage. So you can see that lower leg of the roll cage is hanging down below. I'm just going to put the Sawzall right on there and whack it off. I'm going to use that as a guide. It's going to be shaky. It's going to be a wild ride. I think we're going to make it happen. Same thing on the other side. Now you can see why I welded the tops of those. This whole thing will come apart. So because this is used material, see we're coming up a little bit short right there, but that's not going to stress me. I'm going to draw this in with the ratchet strap and weld it on. Yeah, that other project that this tube came from, it was a shade canopy, and that's just the end of the run where it was kind of nipped off. Put this strap back on here. Come on. Tying knots. Yeah. A little of that. We went to see a magic show in Vegas. It was so good. And Jamie and I were talking about, like, wow, like, this must be so much preparation because they didn't miss a beat. Like you just saw me with the tangled ratchet strap. They didn't miss one beat, and there was a lot of props being moved around. Very impressive.
So many. It's kind of crazy.
Hook that right through there. We'll give it a pull. Whichever leg finds its place first, that's the one we're gonna weld. Look at that, it found its place. Put this spreader in there, right on the mark. Right there. All right, one more click and I think we're good. Right there. I put my gloves. I noticed with that welding, this setting on the welder, it was just a little bit cool. And this is a pretty heavy wall, and that is, so I'm gonna knock this up to about 18.6 and just put a little more speed on that wire, and you'll hear it's gonna cook. It'll be a good hot weld. There we go. If I get a ground, come on. There it is. Hear how like more sizzling it is and less like feedback and popping? It's almost like a softer sound when it's really hot. People say it should sound like you're cooking bacon. That's not entirely untrue. Bacon. All right, now hop on that other side. Actually, let me pin this because that looks appropriate to me. All right, I think I might need a hammer to set that one straight. That strap. I'll melt it. I've done that. I've been welding a roll cage like in a race car. Strap melts. It's like a mouse trap. Really exciting. All right, let's give this a little hammer love. See what happens. There it is, right where it's supposed to be. Yeah, looks like we're gonna have to clamp that back or maybe run the saw through it again. Or use a bigger hammer. Cool, center that. Come on, ground. Work with me here. All right. Back to the spot. Just gonna pull that with a clamp, get it set. I love these clamps. I actually stole them from a workspace there was a business that was closing. There was a business that was closing and they were liquidating all these awesome ironworking tools. You cannot have too many clamps if you're in the welding game. Look at that. Heavy duty. There it is. Cook it. All right, So I think you get the vibe, huh? Just gonna get this good intact and not waste any more of your precious time. Let's put this away. Cut that off. It's the part of the show where I change my sweater and shoes and walk out the door. But we're gonna sit back and check out the work for a brief moment before we call it quits. Bunch of welding has to be done inside, outside, upside down. Probably gonna come in and create some kind of a gusset right here. We're gonna keep on this project for the next episodes, so I'll carry on with the updates. I mean, I can see here, just looks wise, like, wouldn't it be cool if that kind of tied in right there with another one of them? Mm-hmm, sure would. And something to kind of fill that in so it doesn't look so stuck on. But yeah, that's pretty much what we got. Look how it works with the angle of the headers. That vertical roll bar kind of looked like a chin-up bar at first, but now like it has a flow. I always think of the wheel centers as something to gauge off of, right? So you're clocking off of the center of the wheel, and then maybe you're clocking off of this, right? So the angles, they kind of work. Whereas that other one was 90 degrees, it was straight up. So yeah, wheelie popping dune buggies from outer space. That's a wrap.